That's Godzilla's way of saying, hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. Are you excited for Godzilla 2? Or Godzilla King of the Monsters is the official title, coming out on May the 31st, 2019. Are you excited because Godzilla 2, or Godzilla King of the Monsters, is going to be at Comic-Con this weekend? Are we going to get an official poster? Are we going to get an official trailer? Probably not an official trailer, but maybe a teaser trailer at the very least. Probably something like that, or maybe even some behind-the-scenes footage. We did get those 2 images that were released a couple of days ago. Now, I know I'm a little late to the party on that, but here are the images here if you have not seen them. This, of course, is of Millie Bobby Brown of Stranger Things fame, and Vera Farmiga, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Vera Farmiga, I think. Anyway, of The Conjuring fame. I mean, she's been in a ton of other shit as well, but you horror fans probably recognize her most from the 2 Conjuring movies. Anyway, yeah, so there's really not a lot to look at or speculate about this photo. I mean, it's just a promotional image. It does look like a screen capture from the film as opposed to just a straight out promotional image. But yeah, I mean, we have known for quite some time that both of these actresses are in this movie, and here they are in their respective roles, looking upwards. Maybe they're looking up at Godzilla or one of the other 3 or 4 monsters that appear in the movie. Who knows? But okay, cool. Here they are. Here's what their characters look like. All right, great. Not a lot to really talk about there. However, this image here is fucking awesome. I love this image. This is fantastic. This gives me goosebumps. This is the epitome of what you want from a modern day Godzilla. This is fantastic. I love this. I love the atomic breath, right up into the sky. I love these in the middle of the ocean. And I believe that may even be a nuclear submarine off to the left there. At first I thought it was a bunch of rocks, but I actually think that might be a submarine. So that's kind of cool too. But anyway, so, yeah, that's a fucking awesome photo. That's great shit. A great promotional shot of Godzilla. So let me start here. Let's go back, and let's go back to 2014 and talk about Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. Now, for those of you who are new to my channel, in case you don't know, I'm a big Godzilla fan ever since I was a kid. A few months back, I uploaded a couple of Godzilla videos talking about my favorite Godzilla movies growing up and how my favorite, actually, funny enough, was Godzilla 1985, the American version, which of course is the second version, because the original, the Japanese version, is from a year earlier in 1984, and sometimes you see it called Godzilla 1984, but the official title, I believe, is The Return of Godzilla. And that movie, the 1984 version, is a direct sequel to the original Godzilla movie from 1954, whereas the 1985 Godzilla 1985, is a direct sequel to the 1956 American version of the 1954 Godzilla, if you're following me. Now, the original Godzilla movie from 1954 and the Americanized version of that movie from 1956 are essentially the same movie. The differences are, of course, in the American version, you have Raymond Burr, who is playing the reporter Steve Martin, who gets caught up in the mayhem and reports, everything that's going on. And also in the 56 version of the 54 film, the American version from 1956, a lot of the political themes were removed in terms of the original intent of the character of Godzilla being a metaphor and a symbol for the nuclear fallout, of course, that happened with the U.S. Godzilla was supposed to represent sort of, what essentially can happen when humans don't behave. And that's why Godzilla is radioactive. The Americans obviously didn't like that angle and thought that wasn't very nice, considering they were the ones that dropped the bombs, and decided to sort of, remove a lot of that sort of undertone and theme completely out of the 56 American film for the most part. So it's essentially the same movie in terms of, it's not like it's a remake. It's the same film, just with added scenes and scenes taken out and, editing and all that kind of jazz. And the same thing with the 84 Japanese movie and the 85 American movie. It's the same movie, but in the American movie, you have, again, Raymond Burr playing Steve Martin and, all that kind of shit. But of course, throughout the 60s and the 70s, they abandoned that, even the Japanese abandoned that political theme for the most part, and Godzilla just became a B-movie sort of monster movie with all sorts of crazy monsters and crazy characters and off-the-wall sort of eccentric, scenes and situations and villains and all that kind of jazz, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was there are a lot of Godzilla movies from the 60s and the 70s that I absolutely love. I have a ton of VHS tapes with old school Godzilla movies on them, and they're great. They're just awesome. So when I found out that they were going to do an American version of Godzilla again, the last one being, of course, the 1998 movie starring Matthew Broderick, which I saw in the theater for my 19th birthday, I was a little trepidatious. I was a little skeptical and apprehensive because I was like, oh God, what are you going to do? But then I found out that Gareth Edwards' approach was to make it a little more grounded in reality. Like, imagine if this really did happen. And when I was reading about that and those conscious creative choices, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And when I found out that he was consciously making the creative decision to pull off the Jaws effect, right? Which is essentially you keep your main antagonist at bay with that nice slow burn, right? You dangle the carrot, but you don't reveal him too quickly or too early, right? You want that buildup, which can be a very difficult thing to do. But I was like, I'm all for that, because when it's done well, it can be really special and really amazing. Now, of course, this sort of, comes from the movie Jaws, right? How you don't really see the shark really until the third act of the film, or close to the third act of the film. But of course, that wasn't a creative decision that Spielberg made. It was a creative decision that he was forced into because Bruce the shark, that was the nickname of the shark for those of you who don't know, had so many problems. You have this mechanical device in water, you're going to run into a lot of problems. So the shark actually was meant to be shown a lot earlier and a lot more clearly earlier in the movie, but they couldn't. So they had to rely on John Williams' score to let you know when the shark was there. But anyway, at the end of the day, it actually worked out probably better, right? Because there was that anticipation, that suspense, that buildup, which really worked. So it's since been known, affectionately as the Jaws effect ever since. And sometimes it's pulled off really well and sometimes not so much. But one of the things that you have to keep in mind, that if you're making the conscious creative decision to deliberately pull off the Jaws effect, that's how you've written your script, you better make sure that your characters that are carrying the bulk of the movie are really interesting, and that, your main star is pretty three-dimensional, and the supporting cast is at minimum two-dimensional, if not three-dimensional, or two-dimensional with three-dimensional elements. Like, you gotta make your characters really interesting. That's what worked well with Jaws, right? Because when Jaws or the shark was not on screen, we were really attached to Roy Scheider's character, to Robert Shaw's character, to Richard Dreyfuss' character, to Murray Hamilton's character. So it's really important that you have these well-established characters to carry the bulk of the film. Godzilla 2014 didn't have that. The most interesting character, spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen the movie, was Bryan Cranston's character, and he was killed in like the first 15, 20 minutes of the film. He's a great actor, but he was gone. And when he was killed, I don't know about you guys, but it was like you could feel the air just come out of the room. It's like a balloon pop, like, because his son, nothing against the actor who played his son, but he was not interesting in it. There was nobody in that movie that I could live vicariously through or, become emotionally attached to help carry the bulk of the movie, because Godzilla was not on the screen a lot. So it was like, I didn't care. And then I found myself not giving a fuck about this movie and just waiting for Godzilla to come back on the screen rather than getting emotionally invested in the characters that were there. Because that's the way Gareth Edwards approached it, was he wanted that more of that grounded reality Jaws feel to it. Like, imagine if this was really happening. Not quite like literally, obviously, this is about a giant lizard and these giant, creatures. But there was that angle to it. But the characters were just not good. They just were not good. And I question whether Gareth Edwards really knows how to direct and approach characters when it comes to making a movie because I felt the same way about Rogue One. I thought the characters were uninteresting, weak, dull, and boring, and I was not emotionally attached to any of them. And he directed that movie. And let's not forget that Darth Vader scene was not in the original script. You know, it was part of the reshoots. So, you know, like I'm just kind of like, you know, so I gave the Godzilla 2, like I loved what we saw with Godzilla. I loved Godzilla. Loved it, especially that moment towards the end of the movie, which was the best part of the whole fucking film, when you begin to see, the atomic breath, his back light up, right? And you're like, oh, I know it's coming, right? And then he just tears open that creature's mouth and just goes, ah! It's like, yeah, that was fucking awesome. I wanted to see more of that. We needed to see more of that because the characters were so dull. So, I liked what I saw of Godzilla. There was a lot of potential with this incarnation of Godzilla. A lot of potential. What Gareth Edwards did with Godzilla was good. It was good. Yeah, it was really good. Just the characters were shitty. So anyway, so that's sort of, in a nutshell, that's kind of how I felt about Godzilla 2014. I'd probably give it maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10. I just wasn't crazy on it. So, now, with this new movie, Godzilla 2, or like I said, Godzilla King of the Monsters, it sounds like, from everything we're getting from the production and all the things that we're reading about the movie, that this sequel, Godzilla King of the Monsters, is going to be taking it up like 10 notches, right? Because, let's not forget, you've got 3 classic Godzilla monsters in this movie. You've got King Ghidorah, or King Ghidra, I believe is the correct Japanese pronunciation, but comment below and let me know if I'm wrong on that. You also have Mothra, another classic Godzilla character. And of course, you have Rodan, I think it is. I'm not too familiar with that character, but nonetheless, you got 3 epic creatures that are going to be fighting Godzilla. And something tells me that King Ghidorah is going to be the last to appear. I don't think he's going to be the first one, because I think everybody is going to be waiting for King Ghidorah, because he's arguably, Godzilla's most famous arch nemesis. So he'll probably be like the last one to show up, and then, to be like, oh yeah, there he is, right? It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what these classic monsters look like today. So there's no doubt that this is going, they're going to be stepping it up 10 notches in terms of the action for this movie. They've learned sort of what didn't work with the 2014 film, at least I'm hoping, and they're going to definitely step that up because we want to see Godzilla doing his thing more. Now, at the same time, they have to balance that out because it can't just be an all-out war, for an hour and a half or 2 hours. They have to have some exposition. They have to have some downtime. They have to have characters we can become emotionally attached to. So hopefully, Millie Bobby Brown and Vera Farmiga, they are good actors. And hopefully, we can get attached to these characters enough. This isn't a drama, for goodness sakes. And no one is expecting to be, really emotionally, moved by these characters. But we have to like these characters. We have to live somewhat vicariously through these characters to help propel the rest of the movie forward. Because if we don't give a fuck about these characters, I don't know if we're going to really care about what's going on in the rest of the movie. So I'm really hoping that Michael Dougherty can master that balance, because I'm really excited about this. I want to see Godzilla tear some shit up. Apparently, they're also going to utilize a lot of practical effects. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be a shitload of computer-generated imagery in this movie, 100%. But apparently, they're going to be utilizing quite a bit of practical effects as well. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And when practical effects are blended in nicely with CGI, that's the best. It works really, really well. That's what The Force Awakens did, even though I hated The Last Jedi for the most part. That's what The Last Jedi did. That's what a lot of that's what I think, that's what Solo did. That's what Rogue One did. And that's why it's got that practical, gritty, real world vibe to it. but yet the effects are so stellar, right? They're modern day effects, but you see that tangible grit, shooting on location, and, some of the creatures are actually puppets, and it's got that real world vibe. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the practical effects in this new Godzilla movie. Anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. What do you want to see from Godzilla, King of the Monsters, coming out next year? Are you excited about it? Are you a big Godzilla fan like me? Do you want to see him tear shit up? Do you want it to be all out fucking explosions, fire breathing shit? Do you want Godzilla to be a bad guy? Do you want him to be the good guy? He's probably going to be the good guy in this movie. But when he faces King Kong in a couple years, do you want him to be the good guy? Do you want him to be the bad guy? Do you want neither to be good or bad? It's just a sort of neutral kind of face-off. Who do you want to win? Whose corner are you in? Comment below and let me know. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdave McRae. McRae is MCRAE. Facebook.com/manythingsdave McRae. The link is in the description. That's where you can follow me in the meantime and in between time when I'm not posting here, because that's where I tend to post. As well, if you want to help support the channel each and every month via Patreon, that link is in the description too. So until next time, I'll talk to you guys soon. We'll get Godzilla to say cheers.